Hello and welcome. You're watching The Buck Stops Here. The big story tonight, the border and the line of control are under sharp focus as we have seen in a single day 8 civilian deaths in Pakistan firing. The youngest victim is just 5 years old. 4 women are among the victims today. That'll be a big focus on the program tonight. In fact, the Home Minister has convened a high-level meeting to assess the situation on the ground, and the BSF has retaliated fiercely, saying it has destroyed 14 Pakistani posts. The big question, as we look at the single largest casualty in the span of 24 hours in terms of loss to human life, the focus tonight is the ceasefire. Is the 2003 ceasefire as good as dead? Because we've seen 60 ceasefire violations ever since the surgical strikes, raising all sorts of questions of whether this is now a zero-sum game and whether the end of this ceasefire will hurt India just as much as it may hurt Pakistan. On the program today, Farooq Abdullah, former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Ashok Malik, senior journalist and commentator, General Shankar Prasad, and of course, we're also joined by Ambassador K.C. Singh. Let me start with you, Farooq Saab. You've seen the Chief Minister, Mehbooba Mufti, today calling for de-escalation, appealing to Pakistan, also appealing to her own allies, the central government. This is a situation which is now clearly almost looking like the pre-2003 ceasefire.
Well, Barkha, this has to end. How long are we going to kill people on this side and people on the other side? Does it change the line of control? No, it doesn't change the line of control. It only kills people. And I think time has come when DGMO of ours as well as theirs should talk and de-escalate immediately. And then Government of India must start
Farooq Saab, that
thinking
goes
of
against the stated position. But Farooq Saab, that goes against the stated position of the government. This has happened in the aftermath of the surgical strikes. The government has taken a view that if this is the consequence, the army must be given the freedom, the BSF must be given the freedom to contain it and manage it and retaliate as is necessary.
But is that helping us? Is this retaliation helping us? Is it not killing our innocent people? How long are you going to keep on killing innocent people? Is their blood just water? You yourself said children and women have died. How many more do you want to die? Have them dead before you start thinking that this is not going to be the future?
So what are you suggesting, Farooq Abdullah? Because the fact is that the announcement of the surgical strikes has changed the game, as they say. It's changed the rules. And are you actually raising questions about whether this level of aggression is helping India? Is that what you're actually asking or saying?
I am saying time has come when aggression must be given up. How many people do you want to kill?
That's
just because you feel that you are powerful enough and do what you like. I think time has come when DGMO must meet or talk on the phone and de-escalate.
So let me take what you're saying to General Shankar Prasad and Ambassador K.C. Singh. That's a very strong statement, and I think it raises a very fundamental question, General Shankar Prasad.
Yes.
Is this a zero-sum game now at the border and the line of control? General Prasad.
See, the question is whether it's the army or whether it is the civilian government that is ruling India today. The army has to do its job. I think there is no point in the two DGMOs talking. If anybody has to talk, it is the government of India, whether it is at the NSA level or at the foreign secretary level or any other level that the government decides. The army cannot be made to restrict its hand. It has happened for many years. It is for the government of India to de-escalate the way they feel like it. The policy of the government today to give the army a free hand
de-escalate given the stated positions. General Prasad, how does the government de-escalate it given the stated positions since the surgical strikes?
That's because that depends on Pakistan.
DGMO still be operational as it often is in these circumstances?
That depends on Pakistan. The government of India needs to talk to people in Pakistan, whoever they think they need to talk to, whether it is the civilian government or the military, I don't know. Everybody else seems to know better who is the person ruling Pakistan. Is the government of India not prepared to talk to the army chief there? Is the government of India not prepared to talk to the NSA there? Please keep the army out of this dialogue. The army has a business to do. The army must continue doing its business. You cannot let the army put its guard down. That's my position. I am not saying kill people. Please understand it very carefully. I am not saying it is very good to kill people this side and equally better to kill 10 people more that side. That's not the idea. Please understand that if anything is to be achieved, it is by the two civilian governments. And if the civil government in India wants to dialogue, it's with the civil government in Pakistan. But if the civil government in Pakistan is not in command, then they can decide who they want to talk to. I don't know. You know better who's commanding Pakistan today. So if required, somebody needs to speak to their army chief.
To me, it's also, to me, it's not just about Pakistan, General Prasad. It's also about what we as the state, as the Indian state, what the government wants to do with the new Pakistan doctrine. And I want to get Ambassador K.C. Singh and Ashok Malik before I go back to Farooq Abdullah. Ambassador K.C. Singh, this is, of course, something that we've seen as the consequence of the surgical strikes and their announcement. It was expected that the next theatre of conflict would be along the line of control and the international border. But the fact is that while the BSF and the army is retaliating strongly, Indians are also losing their lives. One view would be this is the price to pay in countering Pakistan on terrorism. Another view would be what Farooq Abdullah is saying, enough is enough. This is costing us. The DGMOs need to de-escalate now.
No, that's correct. The logic of surgical strikes was that there will be a disproportionate response from India which will deter Pakistan from using militants against us. Now that is the logic of the surgical strikes. When a leader of the BJP said we'll take a jaw for a tooth. Now the Pakistan army, it should have been anticipated, would love to do that, because then the game has gone into the hands of the Pakistan army. And we've seen that Nawaz Sharif has been further enfeebled today because Imran Khan was starting his march tomorrow. And before he started his march on Islamabad, the Supreme Court has opened an inquiry into Nawaz Sharif's Panama paper allegations, that his family has accounts abroad. So now he'll get further weakened by that. So at the very least, Imran Khan's interests and the interests of the Pakistani army are converging. Now whether they have a handshake, we don't know. But we have a much weaker Prime Minister as of this evening. Therefore now the game has gone into the hands of the Pakistani army, where the army chief retires at the end of November. So any tension on the border suits him, weakened Prime Minister suits him, and this should have been anticipated. So if you want to play the game of deterring...
But what should India do? KC, but the question becomes India, not Pakistan. But KC... But KC, the question for India now is, having taken a position, having established a new normal, having said let this dialogue be in cold freeze right now, at least for the foreseeable future, you can only have a military hotline to military hotline. There is no other, you know, when General Shankar Prasad says let the governments figure this out, how can governments that aren't talking to each other figure this out?
Simply because it's a government's job.
The government has figured it out, because your doctrine has already been announced.
The army is going to do what the government wants them to do.
The doctrine is of disproportionate response. So where is the question of ringing up the DGMO there? Then you are conceding defeat. Then you are telling Pakistan we've had enough and now please let's stop it. But the political logic of this new Modi doctrine on Pakistan is that this is all roadkill. It doesn't matter if the civilians who are hurt, they will be hurt. The Pakistani army will target civilians, so that it becomes an issue in the domestic debate in India. But that should have been anticipated, and I hope the government has an answer for that. But certainly this is not something where we can involve the Pakistani government, because it's your doctrine, and this is the consequence of the same doctrine.
Let me get Ashok in.
And we'll have to live with it.
Let me get Ashok in and then I'll go back to Farooq Sahab. Ashok, you know, you've often used this phrase, I've used it, the new normal. We've spoken about Modi's willingness to take risks with peace, and then also gamble on being more hardline and saying, we're not going to just lie back and take, you know, what happened in Uri, looking the other way, turning the other cheek. But if the argument was that we are now going to increase the cost of terrorism for Pakistan, there will be questions raised, as Ambassador K.C. Singh has raised, or Farooq Abdullah has raised, is this helping India at this point? You know, it's certainly hurting Pakistan, but is it helping India?
You know, when people die, it helps nobody. Having said that, I don't think this is terrorism. This is an army assault. This is a paramilitary assault from Pakistan.
Yes.
On the lines of what we saw in 2014,
Yes.
if you remember, when there was through the summer of 2014, there was a lot of firing, retaliatory firing from
Yes.
India following
Yes.
firing from Pakistan. The Modi doctrine,
Yes.
the so-called Modi doctrine, is about a terrorist attack which sees a retaliation then. This is not a terrorist attack. This is a normal army or paramilitary exchange. What happened after the surgical strikes was that the government, Indian government, sought to give the Pakistanis a bit of a face saver by saying, we are not releasing any videos or any evidence. This is not an attack on the Pakistani military. This is an attack on terrorists. The Pakistanis did not buy that, and they have retaliated because domestically there are 3 or 4 groups, as KC Singh very correctly pointed out, who are jockeying for power within Pakistan. This army is trying to recapture Islamabad in a sense from Nawaz Sharif through Imran Khan. Also, General Rahil Sharif is retiring at the end of the month. He may or may not stay on, we don't know. He certainly wants to go on a high. He doesn't want to go as a loser. A loser who was in command when the surgical strikes took place, a loser who was in command when Quetta took place last week. He wants to go on a high. He wants to go showing that he's done something for his country. He wants to go with his machismo intact. So I'm afraid, even though I agree with Mr. Farooq Abdullah, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, when he says that all of this must stop, and all of us do want peace, amity and tranquility on the LOC, I don't think we're going to get it in the near future. That's the hard fact.
So Farooq Abdullah, let me bring you in. Ashok Malik says, one, you cannot conflate terrorism with what's happening at the border. These are 2 different dimensions. 2, do not link this to the ownership of the surgical strikes. That was Narendra Modi setting a different kind of doctrine that some say should have been set a long time ago. The ownership publicly of those strikes was actually, in a sense, the game changer. When you say this must stop, that's easier said than done, right? How does it stop? Given terrorism, given the internal dynamics of Pakistan, given all of these circumstances and the position that the Indian state has taken, how can it stop?
I want to ask the panel, is weak Pakistan good for India? Because if it's weak, then our Western front is weak. Rather, stronger Pakistan would be safer for us all. And I think the only way forward, whether today, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, as General Prasad says, it's not the army, it's the government that should talk. I think we should take it and let the Prime Minister take that first step. It's not weakness on part of India. India is not weak. It is with strength that we talk. We don't want bloodshed on the other side.
But Farooq Sahab, how would that reconcile?
Bloodshed on our side.
But Farooq Sahab, how does that reconcile? How does that reconcile? Then the Prime Minister would stand accused of constantly flip-flopping on Pakistan, being a peace snake one day, being a hawk the other day, being a peace snake again. Doesn't there need to be some consistency to the Pakistan policy that is followed by any government?
You know one thing? You can change friends. You can't change borders. You can't change neighbors. Either we live with peace with them or live with war on our minds, so that both of us will be forever, perpetually involved in fighting each other rather than developing country, getting out of poverty, sickness and unemployment and all the rest of it that we have got. And unless we stop this thing, it's never going to, India will never rise. We want to see India greater. But by war, we're not going to get greater.
But isn't this utopian? Isn't this idealistic?
We're going to get weaker.
But isn't this utopian and idealistic, Farooq?
It's not
Isn't there a
idealistic.
proxy war
It is
happening
not
already?
idealistic.
Aren't these terrorists who come in, the militants who come in, the Lashkar-e-Taiba pushed across? Isn't that already a proxy war, an asymmetric war by another name? Isn't there already a kind of asymmetric war?
It has been going on. It's been going on for years. We've been fighting them for years. It's not only today. We will continue to fight them till we have peace with that country. We will continue to fight them.
Okay,
There is no way out.
Let me bring in General Prasad and Ambassador KC Singh. Yeah, General Prasad.
How do we bring peace? For 25 years, we have been subjected to harsh terrorism. We are fighting terrorism now. And where is the terrorism coming from? from the Pakistan army, not the civilian government. And who's going to make Pakistan stronger or weaker? They themselves have to become stronger or weaker from within. If they do not have a civilian government which can lead that country and has got a rogue army to lead that country, this is what is going to happen. Are we going to talk to the rogue army? Every single person in this country today knows.
But there is...
Every single person in this country knows, Barkha, today, that this complete policy of terrorism is the brainchild of Pakistan army. No civilian government has ever supported this. So if the political parties in Pakistan are inefficient to do anything, then that's their own problem. We are dealing with an army which is creating a serious problem for us, and we've got to deal with that army.
No disagreement. No disagreement.
So let's deal with
no
that
disagreements
army.
on that.
And
but I would say to Ambassador Casey, okay, but
deal with that army, we will deal with that army. Please be careful about that.
Fair enough,
and
I respect that.
If a government decides to deal with their army,
I respect that,
our
sir.
army shall deal with their army, whether it means war or peace. I'm not suggesting war, but I'm definitely suggesting that the army has to be told to deal with their army, not through DGM or talks. Talks are going to take us nowhere.
I agree, sir. I have full respect for that. But Ambassador Casey Singh, the question is every country must be guided by self-interest. And at this moment, my question is a little more specific. Is it in India's self-interest to have this 2003 ceasefire as good as dead? I am not conflating this with terrorism and how we need to take on the Pakistani army and how we need to push back Pakistan on terrorism. I am simply talking about the ceasefire.
You may have ceasefire today, but tomorrow it will again break.
Look, effectively the ceasefire is dead. If you're going to have unlimited firing, unprovoked and sort of unexpected firing at any point, that means there is no ceasefire. And when civilians are targeted. But that is the logic. I would respectfully disagree with Ashok, that that's the logic of your surgical strike. If you had just kept quiet, if you had been moderate in taking the claim as the military did and South Bloc was doing, and Minister Rathore hadn't gone overboard, and then his boss hadn't gone overboard, and then UP posters had not come out, if you had kept the political dimensions of a surgical strike limited and sent a message to the Pakistan army, that was that. But you have really both a domestic dimension to what you did, and there is a dimension of taking on the Pakistani army. Now, that then is an open-ended game. It can't be, I will do a surgical strike, and then I'll wait and see that you are better behaved or not, and then when you do it again, I'll do it. But then Pakistani army has got the game in their hand. You should have always anticipated it'll get into the Pakistan army's hand, and they will ultimately bring it to this point. We'll say 2 lives for 3 lives for 2. And as a democracy, we'll be more vulnerable because the pressure at this end will always be greater.
Let Ashok take that.
You know, I partly agree.
It's a very good point. It's a very good question, and Ashok, you should go ahead. That has the hyperbolic noise around these strikes. In a sense, given Pakistan the cue it needs. You know, while we were wanting to give exit routes, as you mentioned, has it kind of gone the other way?
I half agree. There has been a hyperbolic noise about the strikes, and some of it has gone far. It's been overboard and shouldn't have happened. Some of it, I agree. But I don't think that's motivating what's happening on the LOC and the border right now. I think we have to see this in terms of the domestic politics of Pakistan. Because there's obviously somebody is trying to create a smokescreen for the jockeying for power in Islamabad, where you have Mr. Qadri back from Canada. He's in Jordan or something at the moment. You have Imran Khan back on the streets. You have the army jockeying for power. You have a succession battle within the army, where obviously Nawaz Sharif would have his own candidate, who he probably won't get. You have Rahil Sharif planning his future, and you have a very weak Nawaz Sharif, weaker than that he was even 2 years ago, embattled after the Panama scandal. And obviously somebody is creating a smokescreen, a diversionary drama, as it were, on the border, saying India is attacking us, to overcome that internal jockeying for power. So domestic politics is coming in here, but I think it's Pakistan's domestic politics more than India's.
Okay, I'm going to give the last word to Farooq Abdullah. Farooq Saab, you have a situation today where you have internal unrest in the valley. It's not resolved, though it may have been better than what it was before. You have schools being burnt, you have external tension, and you have a disagreement on our panel. Is this more about the domestic politics of India, or is it more about the domestic politics of Pakistan? A quick last word to you as I close.
I know what is the situation here. Everybody else knows that. That I am not going to bring up. My point is, for God's sake, let's find a way forward rather than having these deaths taking place. There must be deaths on the other side also. So we have to, we must rather find a way away from it. The weaker Nawaz Sharif gets, the worse it will become. You don't want to make Nawaz Sharif further weaker if you want to really tomorrow settle with him.
Well, many complex questions here. The fact of the matter
to all
is,
your panel,
yes.
To all the panel, I will say, with respect, let's find peace. Let's all work for peace.
Thanking Farooq Abdullah, Ambassador K.C. Singh, General Shankar Prasad and Ashok Malik. Thank you so much for joining us on the Buck Stops here.